My name is Leo and I want to share what happened to me before I met my current woman. I was betrayed by the woman I loved and by someone close to me. Mia and I met through friends. A Saturday night, a normal apartment party, nothing remarkable. Mia was there with a friend. I was there with a guy I had known since I was little. Mia and I started talking about music, work, trips that never happened. It was easy to talk. After the party we texted each other, went for a walk a few days later, ate something simple. Everything felt undramatic. After a few weeks we were a couple. I hadn't planned anything, but it was easy to keep meeting, so we did. Pretty early on I brought up the issue of children. I did it long before we moved in together. I said outright that I don't want children. Not now, but not at all. I explained why. I have a balanced chromosomal rearrangement. That means I myself am fine, but sperm can become unbalanced. The risk for a child is then about 50% of having serious problems, everything from miscarriage to malformations and chronic conditions. I have had it explained by doctors more than once. I took it in, and after that I made my decision. I didn't want to take that risk. I'm not the kind of person who tells others what they should do, but this was my decision. When I told her, Mia said she understood. She said she didn't prioritize children. She was more focused on work, housing, maybe traveling sometime. She saw no conflict. She also said she appreciated that I was clear from the start. I thought this was settled. We moved on. What I didn't tell her then was that I had already had a vasectomy. I did it sometime after I got my genetic evaluation and had come to terms with what it meant. For me it was a measure consistent with the decision I had already made. I thought that if I never wanted biological children anyway, it was just as well to make sure no mistakes could happen. I did tell Mia that from the start. It wasn't to deceive her. I thought what mattered was that she knew what I wanted and why. The procedure itself was just a practical detail. Looking back, I still think it was reasonable to keep it private until a situation arose that required that information. I thought that if we ever ended up in a discussion about fertility, then I would tell her. I did think it would be necessary. We moved in together after maybe 5 months. It wasn't anything big. A 2-room apartment in a fairly normal location. I almost forgot the whole background to why I had once made those choices. Not because I regretted it, but because everyday life did the rest. There were other things to think about. It felt like we had an agreement. I noticed no signs that she had changed her distance. A year after we met, she planned a surprise. I came home from work, she had lit candles and cooked food. She had a special way when she had planned something. We ate, talked a bit. She circled around the subject for a while and then said she had something to tell me. At first I thought it was about her job, she had had some issues there. But she smiled and said that we were going to be parents. She said it just like that, straight, as if it was already settled and good. I didn't say anything for a few seconds. I needed to process. After that I started asking questions. I asked how she knew. She said she had taken a test. I asked if she had been to a doctor. She said not yet. I said it's not possible. She didn't understand what I meant. I continued, still quite calmly. I said I had had a vasectomy. I said it's impossible for me to make her pregnant. I used the word impossible because that's how the doctors themselves said it, without reversal there is practically no chance. I could see on her that she wasn't prepared for that information. At first she said she didn't believe it was true. I said it was true. She went quiet. Then came the next part. I said I need to know who the father is. I said this has to be put on the table immediately. She said it's me. I repeated that it's not possible. I said I can show papers, records, whatever. She shook her head. We couldn't get further that evening. I broke it off. I said I needed to be alone for a while. I went out for a walk and on the way I called my childhood friend, Nicolas. I couldn't hold it in and told him everything. He invited me over and we sat and talked almost the whole night. He asked what I planned to do and I said I don't know. He asked if I could ever trust her again. I didn't answer, I knew the answer and so did he. The whole evening and night Mia bombarded me with messages. But I didn't reply. I slept terribly. The next day it was still the same. She insisted, "It's you." I insisted, "It's not me." We repeated ourselves. Nothing happened. After a few days I packed a bag. I had really decided already the first night at Nicholas's, but I didn't have the strength to fight moving out after just a few days. I said I'm not going to stay in this situation. I said I'll come back for the rest when we can talk for real. She wanted me to stay. She pleaded, she said she was confused, that she loved me, that it was a mistake that I hadn't told the truth about the vasectomy. I said it doesn't matter now. Nicholas and I have been friends since elementary school. He has seen me in all sorts of situations. He's the kind who doesn't overreact. I stayed with him for quite a few weeks, I couldn't bear to be alone. He heard everything, and I know I repeated myself countless times. But he listened, asked direct questions, and sometimes just let it be. It helped to have someone there who didn't make the matter bigger or smaller. And it was nice to have someone to be with so I wasn't completely alone with my thoughts but could focus on other things. The texts from Mia started to get more intense. Different tone every day. One day it was, "Please, come home, VLL fix this." The next day it was more accusing, "Yuri abandoning me, Yuri a coward, you lie about everything." Some messages were neutral questions about practical things. Others were long texts about how I had ruined her image of us. I rarely replied. I wrote a clear message once, "I can talk when you tell the truth." Nothing more. I didn't want to get stuck in long discussions that always end the same. A few weeks passed. I worked as usual. I slept badly but I managed. I started thinking I should go to the health center and ask for a new test just to get it in black and white here and now, even though I knew it wasn't necessary. I talked to Nicholas about it. He said it wasn't needed, but that it might be good for my own peace of mindestance. Mia contacted me again, this time with another tone. She wrote that she had to be honest. She wrote that the father is not me. She wrote that it's Brandon. Brandon is my cousin. Our history is not good. We grew up fairly close geographically, we saw each other at family dinners, those boring weekends. He was a few years older. He was the kind of person who always had to show he was a little better than others. When we became teenagers it got worse. Small comments, little shoves, little ways of making me smaller in front of others. I think he was jealous of certain things. I played tennis he wanted to be good at but never became. I made friends he didn't have. And yes, girls our age liked me more than him for a while. He took it badly. It became a thing that lingered. We drifted apart as we grew older. We started living completely different lives. I completely stopped trying to keep in touch. I had mentioned him to Mia earlier, not in a big way, but as part of why I avoid certain family gatherings. I said I couldn't stand him. I said he had never been good for my self-esteem. She laughed at some anecdote, nothing more. There was nothing in my world that connected her to him. So when she wrote that it was him, I felt nothing at first. I read the message several times. Then I put the phone away. More messages came that evening. First from her, then from him. Brandon sent screenshots of some of his and Mia's conversations. He wrote that he and Mia had met a few times. He wrote that I should have kept better track. He used words meant to provoke me. I won't reproduce them here word for word. The core was that he wanted me to know he thought he had won something. He also wrote that I could keep her if I wanted, that she was prettier than she was good in bed, and that the first time she spread her legs was in my bed. He wanted to provoke. I didn't reply. The next day I moved my things. I got help from Nicholas. I sent Mia a text 2 hours before saying that I'm coming, that I'll take my stuff and that I don't want to talk. She didn't reply. When we got there she wasn't home. I took what was there, clothes, some tools, documents, small things. I left the key on the kitchen table. I took some pictures of how I left the apartment, just to have it done. Then we left. When I stood in that apartment, I realized there was nothing to save. It was crystal clear, I only felt emptiness. I called her that same evening. I said I'm breaking off the engagement. I said I don't want contact. I said she can deal with the practical stuff with her friends or family, that I'm not this child's father and will not be part of it. I said I wish her the best, but that there is nothing more to say. It was silent on the other end. She hung up. After that came the next wave. Not from her, but from her friends. At first it was soft. Think again, you can work it out, the child needs a father, you were there from the beginning anyway. I told them the same as I told her, I'm not the father, I'm not staying in a relationship where I've been betrayed, I won't take responsibility for other people's choices. They kept calling, now with another tone. It became harsh. They started threatening to tell others that I was violent. They said they would write that I had done things to Mia. They mentioned words no one wants linked to their name, even when everyone knows it isn't true. I noted that it escalated quickly. I thought through what I would do next. I started recording the calls. This sounds planned, but it wasn't at first. It was after the first aggressive calls, when I noticed the situation had changed. I just needed to be sure I wouldn't be stuck word against word if it went further. It did go further. Their rumors started on social media. I noticed it first when someone asked me what was going on. Someone sent me a link. I saw posts where my name wasn't written out, but everything was obvious anyway. People know who's who when you live as we do, when circles are small. The posts were written in the tone often used in such contexts, I won't say names, but warning about a person who, women should dare to speak. After a while I was called by the police. They had received reports. I was called in for questioning. I went. I brought all the documentation I had, texts, screenshots, recordings. I answered the questions, matter-of-factly. I didn't try to make a big thing of it, I just said what needed to be said. The police were professional. They listened. They didn't say much more than that everything would run its course. At the same time, more messages came from Brandon. Same style. I still didn't reply. He called once. I declined. He then sent a message calling me a coward. He also admitted in the same message that he had been with Mia while she and I were together. It was meant to provoke me, but it became evidence. I saved that too. The investigation took its time. Meanwhile I tried to sort out my own life. I moved into a furnished sublet until I found something better. I worked overtime more often. I started exercising more, mostly to sleep better. I cleaned out things. I made routines that had nothing to do with her. It wasn't exciting. It was necessary. When the police were finished, they contacted me again. They had talked to several people. They had compared statements. They had gone through the material. I was told they had dropped the preliminary investigation against me. I was also told they had moved forward with suspicion of false accusation and defamation against two of Mia's friends. Mia herself hadn't reported anything directly, it was her friends who pushed it. I never found out exactly everything they had said, but apparently it was enough. A few months later I got the news that 2 people had been sentenced to conditional sentences. I read what I had the right to read. I didn't comment. I moved on. During the same period Mia contacted me once or twice. I didn't reply. I had nothing to say. I had already said what needed to be said. Brandon stopped writing after a while. I heard from family, indirectly, that he had run into financial trouble. It didn't surprise me. I also heard there was a legal process about child support. The court decided he must pay every month. I guess that's when it stopped being fun for him. I didn't take part in that. It wasn't my matter. Time passed. I lived my life. I did think I'd want to date for a long time. I didn't look for it, but as often happens, someone showed up when I wasn't looking. Her name is Sarah. She had 2 children from a previous relationship. We first met in a context that had nothing to do with dating, more practical. We started talking, we kept talking. I told her early on how my last year had been, not in detail, but enough for her to understand I wasn't a project. She told me about her ex, about how they share responsibility, about how she was tired of people who only stay as long as everything is convenient and disappear when something gets tough. I appreciated that she was clear. I once again said the most important thing: I don't want biological children. I explained why, with my balanced chromosomal rearrangement, exactly as I had once before. I also said this time right from the start that I had had a vasectomy. She asked 2 questions, quite direct. Do you want to be part of someone else's children's daily life, and have you ever doubted your decision? I said yes to the first, no to the second. I said I can like children and still not want to have my own. She said that was enough for her. We started seeing each other. It was different compared to previous relationships. There were already routines, bedtimes, homework, soccer practice, a daily puzzle that couldn't be negotiated away. I got a place in it at the pace that felt natural. I wasn't dead, Todd's their real dad, but I became an adult who was there. I learned what needed to be bought for school, which days were sports days, how to cook the stew they actually eat without protest. It wasn't hard. It was just about being present. At some point it struck me that I actually liked children more than I had realized. I never had a problem with children as such, I just didn't want to bring a child into the world when I'm sitting on a coin that can land wrong half the time. This was different. I could be a safe point without risking any child for my own sake. I could be the one who picks up when someone else works late, the one who fixes the bike, the one who teaches how to change a battery in a remote control. Small things, but that's what builds everyday life. I didn't hear anything from Mia. I heard through others that she moved to a smaller town. She worked a lot. 3 jobs, someone said. Her parents helped with childcare. One of my friend's girlfriends is a friend of Mia. She said that men are very cautious around her. No one wants to have anything to do with her. Not even for friendship. They know what happened to the last guy she ended up in conflict with. No sane man wants to deal with a person like that. I am finally with a woman I feel I can trust. She makes me feel like a man. She supports me when things are tough. And I have gotten a family even though I cannot have children of my own.
If you liked this story, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up. It helps a lot, and you won't miss out on any future stories. Take care and live your best life.